Hey everybody, welcome. I am the AV teacher and class is in session. Hey everybody, today we are talking about lenses, a very powerful tool for every shooter, every director of photography, every wannabe cinematographer. You know, when we first start shooting, oftentimes we just grab a camera and go. We don't even stop and look at what lens is on there. And sometimes it's difficult to understand what each lens does. And that's one of those things that you really learn by doing, by grabbing different lenses and shooting with them and experimenting with them. But today, I'm going to try to show you a little bit about the lenses so that hopefully you'll have a better understanding of what each of them can do, the different kinds of looks that they can achieve, and the purpose for each lens, or at least a purpose that you can think of when you're going to shoot. You can say, oh, I want to do this kind of shot, I'm going to grab that kind of lens. So you can better understand the tools that you have at your disposal. So as you can see here though, I do have quite a few lenses in front of me. These are all lenses that you guys have access to here at the school. The main thing you need to know for now is the focal length, okay? Remember, the focal length is the distance essentially from where the light hits the sensor in the camera to the optical center of the glass, okay? The main thing for you guys to remember is the smaller the focal length number, the wider the shot. So this is a 50 millimeter lens. Its focal length is 50 millimeters. This is an 85 millimeter lens. So the 50 is gonna be much wider than the 85. This is a 35 millimeter lens. The 35 is going to be much wider than the 50. So be thinking about that, wrap your head around that whenever you think about what lens you want to use. The 85 is a pretty tight lens. Then we have a lens like this that has a changing focal length. Its focal length is 55 all the way to 250. So 250 is going to be a very tight shot. Now, the thing about a lens like this with a variable focal range is the aperture is not going to be very large. So your images are going to be darker and you're not going to get that depth of field that you really want to achieve. Remember, the depth of field is the area that's in focus. So a lot of times when we're trying to create that cinematic look, we want a shallow depth of field, meaning we do not want very much in focus. We have a better chance of doing that when we use a 50 or a 35 or an 85 because those are fixed lenses that have very large apertures. Remember, the larger the aperture, the more shallow depth of field you can achieve to create that cinematic look. So let's run through these again real quick. This small one is the 50 millimeter. This is the 85 millimeter. It's pretty tight. This is a 35 millimeter. This right here, I'm sure none of you have ever used. This is a wide angle lens. This is 14 millimeters, so this is very wide. Here you can see a comparison between the four different lenses. The camera is exactly 2.5 feet away. The f-stop is the same. The only thing that has changed is the lens. So you can see from 2.5 feet away, the difference between the 85 and the 14 is tremendous. And you can see from the 85 to the 50 to the 35 to the 14, each lens, it gets a little bit wider. This is one of my favorite universal lenses, the variable focal length. This is great for getting B-roll. This is great for shooting a news package, shooting B-roll for like an interview or a corporate video. I use this lens all the time. Not necessarily my number one choice for a cinematic lens, but it's a great lens. This is a 24, so it's 24 wide to 105. So very dynamic range with a little bit smaller aperture. This can go to 4.0, so not bad. Now, the 50, the 85, the 35, the 14, these are going to have much larger apertures than any of the others. They're going to have apertures, let's see. The 85 has a maximum aperture of 1.5, so that's a very large aperture. That's going to give you a very shallow depth of field. The 35, what is it? It's going to be similar, 1.5. So those are very large apertures, going to give you very shallow depth of field. So this, let's see, let's move to this guy here. This is what I said earlier. This is the kit lens. Comes with all the cameras for free. It is 18 to 55, but it's not gonna have a very large aperture. It does not say on here what the aperture is, but it's probably like 4.5 or 5. This is not a bad lens. This has got a variable focal range. This is an 18 to 35. Let's see if it can tell what it is with a 3.5 maximum aperture. That's not bad. This is a pretty good lens. So this would be one to consider if you need a variety of focal lengths. And then we've got our zoom lens. This is really more of a photography lens. You could use this for a stylistic shot. Maybe you want to do some kind of real quick whip zoom or something. That could be cool for this, but you're not going to get a whole lot of cinematic use out of this lens. Now what we're going to do, we're going to put on the different lenses, we're going to get some shots, and we're going to compare them at the same time so you can see what the real difference looks like. The 85 is going to be a more personal lens. It's good for close-ups and things like that. It's going to give you really beautiful bokeh. A more universal lens might be your 50 millimeter or your 35. You know, you might shoot a conversation with your 35 and then get close-ups with the 85. Your 14 millimeter, your wide angle is going to be a little bit more specialized. But if you can only take one lens out, I'd probably take either the 35 or the 50. But if you could take several, you know, that'd be great. Gives you lots of options, and you can really get into some beautiful shooting, some advanced cinematography. But it's also up to you to decide. Play around with the lenses, see what you like, see what you can discover.